4 flaming hot picks. 3 days till Sunday, 2 guys talking about football. One reason to do it, and here we go.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Sugar Bookie with Erik and John. I'm Erik. He's John. Welcome to the NFL Week 2 show. Going to do a recap of our Week 1 picks and then give you our flaming 4 for NFL Week 2. His name is John Scott. He did better than me last week, so I'll turn it over to him. John, give us the recap on your official picks from last week, pal.
I might have done better, but 500 isn't the best. So 2-2 start for old John Scott here, but let's go through them real quick. I had Chargers going into Washington, and they pulled off the upset there, took care of Washington on the road, which was great for them. Good win by them. I think Washington is a good, strong team, but I think the Bolts were just a little bit too much for them there. Second game, I had the Vikings going into Cincinnati and taking care of business. I said I didn't trust Cincinnati, but oh man, did they show up on Sunday. Good high-scoring game, ended up going into overtime. Field goal won the game. Great win for the Bengals. Bad loss for me. Took one on the chin there. Speaking of taking one on the chin, I had the Tennessee Titans taking care of business against the visiting Arizona Cardinals. And holy cow, did Kyler Murray show up on Sunday. Man, oh man, he blew the doors off that team, and it was embarrassing. I feel like Vrabel left at halftime. He was like, "This is over. I gotta go. I gotta hide myself. Like this is a terrible, terrible loss at home." But for my final pick, I had Steel City going down into Buffalo, and not only did they cover, but they took care of business. I said they needed to make a statement. I felt like the statement would have been enough to cover, but holy cow, did they take care of business and show that they are going to be a contender. I don't necessarily know if they're a playoff team, but they're going to shake some things up as they go along. So,
yeah.
How do you feel, Erik? How'd you do last week?
Well, listen, as far as you go, 2-2, nothing to get too low about. It was a weird week. This was one of those weeks where books made a lot of money, a lot of favorites, not only didn't cover, but outright lost. You and I were in agreement on the Steelers. That was the one play that we're both in our official picks. Steelers not only obviously covered, but got the win. You know how quickly people forget, and I'm going to come back to this a little later in the show with a little bit of a tease of one of my official picks. People forgot the Steelers' last team to take a loss last season. One ugly playoff loss on national TV can certainly change the zeitgeist and change it fast. So our agreement was actually my only win, 1-3. I'll start with, as far as losses, with my best bet. In every single one of these, fumbles just killed me. Lamar Jackson fumbles twice late. I will say this about taking Baltimore -4.5 on Monday night. If those two teams were playing again on Sunday in Las Vegas, Baltimore Ravens laying 4.5, I take the Ravens again. Maybe not as my best bet, but I still think I was on the right side of that. I'm calling it now. The Raiders go down the tubes for the rest of the season. Hey, remember this, Jacksonville got its one win last week in week 1, proceeded to lose the next 15 games. I'm not saying that's going to happen with the Raiders. But interestingly enough, I just talked about 2 of the teams playing each other, and they're in my official picks. Also, you and I were in disagreement. Tip of the cap to you. I took Washington hosting the Chargers. Look, I'm never going to get too down on myself when a starting quarterback, goes down 6 passes into the season and a backup needs to come in. I think if Fitzmagic is in that game, I think Washington wins it and covers. But who knows, if ifs and nuts, as they say. And then finally, a loss with New England. That was the one that I really missed on. I thought Mac Jones would be more, I don't want to say efficient, because he did have a really efficient game. No turnovers. I think his passer rating was 100 or close to. So he certainly didn't have a bad game, but I thought there would be more offensive firepower. If you had told me that the Dolphins would only score 17 points, I would have felt even better about taking the Patriots. So that was what I am going to say is in my other 2 losses, fumbles were a major factor. I mean, look, the Washington football team fumbled on their own 3-yard line. It's hard to cover a spread when you do things like that. But that being said, 1-3 is 1-3 is 1-3. So a lousy week for me to start. But again, tip of the cap to you. We disagreed on one game and you got the better of me. Well done.
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head with New England. I mean, when you look at a game like that, 17 points being scored with as much efficiency as you were seeing from at least one side of the quarterback side, there was just a game between the 20s. I mean, they just couldn't get in the red zone. When they did, they couldn't score. So it's just like one of those things where you talk about everybody wanted to push and say, oh, New England's this great team this year. And however they might turn out to be, I think it's going to take Jones a little bit of time to get himself comfortable in that offense. And then we'll see what happens with them at that point. But, that's a division where you can kind of flounder for a little bit. You might even be able to start off with a terrible losing record and turn around and win the division, because I just don't think that anybody is very strong in that division at all.
Yeah, well, and the Bills certainly showed some weakness there to start. All right, week 1, we hardly knew ye. Goodbye and good luck. On to week 2.
Well, Eric, before we get to our official picks for week 2, so I can go another 2-2 for everybody there, is there any numbers we want to take a deep dive and look into from week 1?
Yeah, real quick, there was some really interesting line movement on Sunday that really affected the spreads. And those games were the New York Jets at Carolina, which opened with Carolina -4 over the summer, but it closed Carolina -5.5 to -6. Most of that movement was on Sunday. So if you got the Jets +5.5, or you got Carolina -4.5, you cashed. But if you were on the wrong side of either of those, it's always interesting. It moved right through that 5-point margin of victory, again, going -4.5 up to -6. So it's important to note that once you get into that 6, 7, 8 range, things can really start to change, and the correct team may prove elusive. Those late points are good to gobble up. And I don't need to look any further than another example of San Fran at Detroit. That line held firm ever since it came out over the summer, -7.5. But on Sunday, it creeped up to 8, then 8.5, then even -9 in some places. And it was obviously an 8-point victory for the Niners. So one of those situations where pros bet numbers, not teams. And those two games, you need to be really careful when lines are moving like that. Again, particularly through 5, 6, 7, 8. That's a very common margin of victory. Be careful, especially if you like the points. Especially if you like the favorite, you're looking to lay the points. Those points get really valuable in that range. And I'm sure a few people who hopped on San Francisco a half point too late, hopped on Carolina a half point too late, and ended up with a losing ticket on Sunday. It bears monitoring over these next few weeks, where you do have significant line moves late into Saturday and on Sunday, whether those margins of victory get passed through as the line moves. It'll be really interesting. And my hunch is that it'll continue to be those 4 spreads, 5, 6, 7, and 8 seem to be the common ones where people really do get themselves into trouble. In previous seasons, it typically had been 3. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I mean, some of those spreads are huge, and I always get a little weary when you're talking about 6, 7, and 8 points. But with that being said, I'll start off with my first pick. Not starting off with my best bet today, but I will finish off with my best bet. And we'll lead into your picks. I actually like Seattle laying 6 here against Tennessee. They are hosting them at home. Tennessee coming across after licking their wounds after a tough loss at home. Tennessee just has a hard time moving the ball, man. Just looking at the numbers, they're second to last in total yards. They're fourth to last in passing yards. They're fourth to last in total yards. This team is just, it's kind of miserable on the offensive side of the ball. I know that's only 1 week that we're seeing, but Seattle's got a major home field advantage. They've got the 13th man. They have one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And, oh, by the way, their defense is top 50%, and they don't let people move the ball very much. So I think this is going to be a tough one for Tennessee to do on the road. I know laying 6 is a lot, but with Wilson behind the ball and the weapons that he has in Tyler Lockett and DJ Metcalf, like I don't see that this being a very close game at all.
I have Russell Wilson as my MVP this year, so you're not going to hear any arguments from me regarding how good that guy is. But, John, we stumbled on one right here. I am on the other side. One of my 4 official picks is Tennessee getting the points. So disagreement, and I'll fill you in on why that is when I go. Always fun to have these disagreements, and it didn't take long for us to find one. So,
well, I mean, I'm usually good at finding the ones that you like to sit on the other side of. So,
sure.
It'll be good to have a little debate about this, and then
love it.
And when I'm right next week, we'll be able to talk about it again.
Hey, man, you were right week 1. Why should the party stop now?
So with my second official pick this week, the Bears laying 2.5. Bengals did come out with a win last week. They played Minnesota really tough, but you've got a team here. You got the Bears, who are second to last in yards per complete. Wow, Jesus.
You're good, man.
Yards per completion on defense. They're last in the league in yards per attempt, and second to last in fourth down conversions. Now, on the other side of the ball, the offense of the Bengals seem to convert fourth downs, but for whatever reason, they cannot convert third downs. So they have a hard time keeping their offense on the field, but when they get the fourth down opportunity, they take advantage of it. And unfortunately, the Bears kind of give those up. But I'm looking for the Bears to have a little bit of a bounce back game today, and a little bit deflating loss for the Bengals. I think the Bengals are going to come back to earth. I think they're riding a little high after that win because, Minnesota was a tough team. They came in, they won in overtime. It's a young team, and I'm a little bit concerned about them taking on the Bears here. I think the Bears are going to be a little bit more focused and look for them to come away with a cover and a win here.
Yeah, agreement with you. You took the high road in your explanation of your loss with Minnesota last week, whereas I made a bunch of excuses. So good for you. Bottom line, I'll do the excuses for you here. Minnesota should have won that game. They gave it away. And I'll tell you this too, Mike Zimmer went from a sacred cow to now he is the second favorite to be the first coach fired this year. It's not really his fault, man. I don't know how far you can get with Kirk Cousins. I mean, Kirk Cousins, it's like trying to win the Indy 500 on a llama. So the guy was kind of doomed from the beginning when the organization paid Kirk Cousins that kind of money. But Minnesota, but Minnesota was the better team. If that game were being played again this Sunday, same two teams, say it was the playoffs, and I know NFC, AFC East, but they're in two different conferences, so they wouldn't play each other wild card weekend. But just to emphasize my point, if those two teams played this game week 17 and Minnesota was going back for wild card weekend and was -3 again next week, I'm on Minnesota in that game. They were the better team. They had a bad fumble late in OT, and that's why they didn't come away with the win. So I think the Bengals come into this game overrated. I agree with you. I think Washington got humiliated. It's an opportunity. I'm sorry, Chicago rather got humiliated on Sunday night. It's an opportunity to buy low and sell high. Not one of my official plays, but I am definitely on Chicago in that game. I think the Bengals are one of the worst teams in the NFL, kind of like the Raiders, and they were able to scrape a win out. It's early, man. Wins are going to happen here and there. That's just how this league goes. So agreement with you there on your second pick with the Bears.
And just to remind me, there is a young man by the name of Khalil Mack on that defense.
Seriously.
I think he's going to go burrow hunting, and we're going to see what happens from that. Okay.
Yeah. Their offensive line is still, Burrow looked good, and man, did Jamar Chase look good, but their offensive line is putrid. It just comes down to Minnesota, which is again shocking with Mike Zimmer. They weren't able to take advantage of it. So that was one of the surprises there. But again, explainable. Anyway,
I was surprised with Chase's play as well, especially with the quote that he had come out with early in the week that it was hard for him to pick up the ball because it didn't have the lines on it like college football. That was kind of funny. But hey, it worked out for him. I know, right? You're right. Well, with my third official pick, I've got the Bills -3 at Miami. I know this is a road game for the Bills. I know it's hard for teams to go into Miami with the heat and everything like that down there, but the Bills were embarrassed at home. This is a team that could potentially be a Super Bowl contender. This is a divisional game. There is no way Sean McDermott is not ready for this game. There's no way that these guys go in there flat. This is going to be a high-powered game. Miami better strap in. They better be ready because first of all, the Bills defense coming after you. Number two, you've got a pissed off Josh Allen because he lost that game. You've got some receivers out there that want to catch the ball. You got a running back that wants to run. I know Miami's got a pretty decent defense, but they're going to be out there a long time because Tua's going 3 and out a number of times. That Bills offense is going to be on the field. It's going to wear out that defense. This is -3. If it even was -5 or -6, I probably would still take it. This this is going to be a big win, I think, for the Bills. The Bills are going to make a statement. They're not going to take the fact that they just got beat up at home by another conference rival and then go in and be flat in Miami. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah,
Eric, any thoughts?
I'm sorry. Feed me in again.
Eric, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I admire the thinking of buying low and selling high here, John. You got the Dolphins off a win in New England and the Bills off a humiliating loss to Pittsburgh. I will say this, and we're going to give you, because this is for fun, we're going to give you the -3, but in most books right now, this one is 3.5. And with two defenses as good as the Dolphins and Bills, I have to take the hook over the 3. So this is not an official pick for me. I will admit it was in consideration because of what an enormous home field advantage Florida is, and then Tennessee. So the Florida teams, Jacksonville, Tampa, and really Miami's the big one, and then the Titans, those home field advantages in September are huge, and that's the deciding factor coupled with the hook over the touchdown. So I am on the Dolphins plus 3.5. Which I think this absolutely is a contender for a field goal game, but certainly we'll give you the Bills -3. At +3, I'm still on the Dolphins, but certainly don't like it as much. And again, this is a lean more than a like for me on the Dolphins at home.
I think we need to ask Kyler Murray about that home field advantage in Tennessee.
Well played. Well played. Let's get that best bet from you, buddy. Here we
So
go.
my best bet belongs to the San Francisco 49ers laying 3 here in Philadelphia against the Philadelphia Eagles. The San Francisco defense, they bend a lot, man, but they don't break. They'll give up yards. They will let you move the ball. But when you get close to the goal line, they get a little stingy down there. And I think it's going to be tough. The Eagles, listen, they made a statement. They went into Atlanta last week, and they just took advantage of that team. Atlanta's terrible. You think that you think some of these other teams are bad. You think the Bengals are bad. I think Atlanta's not too far behind. 3-4 win team, maybe 5-win team. The Eagles should have won that game. The East is the NFC East is up for grabs. I think it's going to be probably Dallas and Washington. Philadelphia can mix into that mix somewhere. I know preseason, I believe they were picked to win 6 games. This has got to be one of the games that they were picked to win last week against Atlanta. I just think this is a tough opponent in San Francisco coming into town. Good defense, well-coached team, good offense, can move the ball. I think this could be a high-scoring game, maybe 32-28, somewhere around that area, but I don't think it's a field goal game. I think it's one of those games where there might be 2 or 3 possessions where they exchange a field goal for a touchdown type situation. And I think the score runs away from the Eagles. It still will be close at the end of it, but I think the 3 points is safe. Thoughts, Eric?
So 32-28 is your prediction. So your best bet is a 1-point cover, huh? All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, listen, all it needs for the best bet is for it to win, right?
Dude, I got you. And I agree with you too, especially now that at 3.5 for, the Eagles, I don't think this is a field goal game either, but 3.5 is a little tempting. I still would have been on the Niners. Look, I think the Eagles had a fantastic opening to their season. They may have just caught a really bad team, flat-footed. Atlanta cleaned house in the front office, head coach, et cetera, last year. And maybe they need a season to get their act back together, or maybe they just stink, who knows? But I'll put it to you this way. The Eagles are not that good. They're not as good as they looked in week 1. So an opportunity to sort of sell high here, I think makes a lot of sense. So not one of my official picks, but agreement with you on San Francisco. I think they win by 7 to 10 points. So that 3 or even 3.5 is pretty safe.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, man, bend don't break. The stats don't look good if you look at San Francisco's defense, but we all know San Francisco has a good defense. They were in the Super Bowl a couple years ago. The team always puts defense on the field. They can run the ball well. They have pretty much a game manager behind QB, but with weapons all around them. So you give them an opportunity to roll a little bit. You come into Philadelphia. Philadelphia has a home field advantage. Don't get me wrong. They absolutely do. But for the right character coming into town, that type of environment can fuel you, not diminish you. So I look for an interesting game on Sunday here, and I think it'll be a fun one.
All right, man. Well, good luck. Up on the screen now are John's 4 official picks. Make sure there are a few numbers in there that are specific to 3 as opposed to 3.5. So if you are taking his advice, make sure you get the number that he's putting out there. As far as my flaming 4 picks for NFL Week 2, and hey, you might want to go ahead and short these right now by 1-3 week, including a loss on my best bet. But it's time to get back on the saddle, and here we go. Pittsburgh Steelers -5.5 hosting the Las Vegas Raiders. Look, the Raiders got lucky last week. It was a great game on Monday night, but let's not forget, Baltimore is a running team whose entire running back stable was out. Since the win, Las Vegas has announced that a starting guard and defensive tackle Gerald McCoy were lost for the season, and their best pass rusher Yannick Ngakoue is out for this game. On a short week off primetime, Las Vegas heads east for an early game. That's 10 a.m. body time as opposed to 5:30 p.m. on Monday night. This is against a Steelers team that is always tough early in the season. As I talked before, amazing how one bad playoff performance makes everyone forget that the Steelers were the last team to lose a game last season. Just like Jacksonville won their opener and then proceeded to nosedive and lose their final 15 games, look for the Raiders to be flat-footed in this game and get smacked. Steelers 31-17. I'm laying the 5.5 with the Pittsburgh Steelers. John, your thoughts?
Man, Eric, this was just outside of my top 4. I know I had some wild ones in my top 4, but this was right there. I agree with you. I think this is going to be a rough trip for Las Vegas. Chucky will have them ready, but man, oh man, they're not ready for Pittsburgh. If this were like a Bengals game or even Minnesota, I would give them a chance, but this is no way. It's an opportunity for Pittsburgh to go 2-0. I don't think they're going to miss that opportunity.
Yeah, and I know that Pittsburgh got a win last week, so you can't say buy low, sell high here. Pittsburgh got the upset, so did the Raiders. In fact, it was only what I think Pittsburgh was +5.5, Raiders +4.5. So the Steelers actually had, in theory, the bigger upset. But on Monday Night Football in overtime, beating Lamar Jackson, I think the Raiders are just so overpriced right now. Shorting them is going to be a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, and that game was crazy, man. I mean, the Raiders had so many opportunities to win it, and they threw an interception in overtime in the end zone, and they still came away with the win. Like, that's one of those situations where you're just like, I don't know how you guys did that. That was like a magic hat thing, and it's crazy because with the way Vegas's season might go, that might be a win that gets them into some sort of contention for something. It maybe not, but who knows what happens with their division. And that could be a win that they might have needed that they got week 1.
See, again, no, I'm not buying it. I have the Raiders finishing 4th in the division. I still think their under 7 wins is very much in play. This is obviously going to be a major test. If they go in there and not only cover but beat the Steelers, then I might have to walk back on that. But with my preseason predictions, despite the fact that week 1 went away from me in a few instances, I'm sticking with my pick. The Raiders are a lousy team. They shouldn't have won that game, and I'm fading them in week 2. I'm fading them in week 2 as my best bet, Pittsburgh Steelers. New Orleans -3.5 at Carolina. Carolina came out of the gate strong last week, but then struggled to put away the anemic Jets late. Look for a letdown from Sam Darnold, who's coming off what must have felt like a Super Bowl, a revenge scenario against his former team. Sure, this Saints squad lost its first ballot Hall of Famer in Drew Brees, but Jameis Winston is a former number 1 overall pick who may just have found the perfect system and coach for him in New Orleans. This is a different level of competition for Carolina than they had last week against the Jets. The fact that it's an in-division game makes the hook a little harder to swallow, but I think the Saints roll them 38-20. New Orleans Saints -3.5, my second official pick of week 2. John, your thoughts?
Well, this was a game that I was looking at very closely, and I actually chose this as a stay away game because I was worried about whether or not the win over Green Bay last week was too much of a hype win and puts a big head on Jameis Winston's shoulders going into a game where they definitely have the advantage and should potentially win it. Unfortunately, seeing how Jameis Winston has played his professional career, I get a little nervous when I think that he's got a big head. He had a great team in Tampa Bay, and he could never win the big game because he just couldn't get out of his own head. He started making stupid mistakes, pressuring things that he shouldn't have pressured, trying to force things he didn't enforce. You make a couple mistakes against Carolina. Now, listen, Carolina's not the greatest team on the planet, but they do have one of the best running backs in the league that is absolutely electric. And when you have a guy like that and you give them an opportunity to control the game, it could potentially be a little bit of an upset. I agree with you. I think the Saints are probably the better team, or absolutely are the better team here, but the cover is tough for me to take. So that's why I stayed away from it.
Yeah, understandably so. I mean, the Saints were probably the biggest pleasant surprise, other than maybe the Eagles or Arizona. I think those three were all in there as far as really overperforming against expectations. So taking them the next week can get a little bit dangerous. That being said, I see a significantly better team here. I'd be comfortable with this, honestly, all the way up to probably 5.5. So getting a little bit of value there on what I think the spread should be. So I really like that Saints pick. Official pick number 3, the Dallas Cowboys plus 3.5 at the LA Chargers. Well, the Chargers did look impressive in their opener. They beat a team who lost their quarterback for the season 6 passes into it. Yes, Justin Herbert is going to be special, but this is still a rookie coaching staff with a revamped offensive line against a team in Dallas that is the polar opposite of what they saw last week in Washington. The Cowboys, off 10 days rest, are now getting the hook over the field goal here. I love it. While their defensive losses to injuries are concerning, the Cowboys offense showed a real spark last Thursday night. The offensive line regression for Dallas seems to not be as severe as predicted in the offseason. Look for that unit to give Zeke the room to wake up this week, allowing Dallas to control the clock and keep Herbert and his fellow offensive playmakers off the field. The hook is everything here. That change from Cowboys plus 3 to now Cowboys plus 3.5 pushed this one into the official plays for me. If you must know the spread that got eliminated, I probably in my 4th slot would have taken Green Bay minus 10.5 against Detroit on Monday night. But with that extra half point, Green Bay's out, Dallas is in. Final score, Cowboys 23, Chargers 26. Chargers get the win, but the Cowboys get the cover. John, your thoughts?
Yeah, this is another game that was hard for me to pick either side. I saw it, and I wanted to go Cowboys, but for what I said last week about the Chargers, I believe in the team. I believe in the quarterback. The Cowboys did a fantastic job against a really tough defense in Tampa Bay. But again, after being week 1, we don't necessarily know who's who and what's what. So they might have taken care of business against a team that might have slowed down a little bit last week. We don't know. I think the Cowboys are a tough team. Their offense looks really good. They moved really well. I mean, CeeDee Lamb is like unreal, and then Amari Cooper on the other side. But don't forget, Chargers have weapons too. So yeah, I think the 3.5 is definitely looks good for the Cowboys here. 3, I would be a little bit more sketch. I lean Cowboys on this, but I'm not fully in on that.
Fair enough. And finally, last, the Tennessee Titans plus 6 at Seattle Seahawks. This is a pure contrarian play. But let me ask you this. Outside of Green Bay, did any team get more humiliated last weekend than Tennessee? And unlike Green Bay, they were at home. There's got to be a remember the Titans joke in here somewhere, but I can't find it. Conversely, Seattle looked smooth and confident in their first game at the Colts, but this is a great bounce back spot for the Titans. Despite a stout defense, Seattle didn't see anything like Derrick Henry in week 1 or the preseason. While it became clear that Tennessee isn't going to the Super Bowl this year, 6 points are simply too many to lay against a team that has made the playoffs 2 seasons in a row and boasts the best between the tackles back in a decade. A backdoor cover is a possibility, but I think the Titans keep this game close all game. Final score, Titans 27, Seahawks 31, but I'm taking the points with Tennessee. John?
I think 31-21. I'm going double digits here.
Okay. That's the question.
I stick to my guns on this. It's hard for me to go against good old Russ, man. He's just too good.
it just seems to me that everybody, like, this is one of those games where looking at it, I said, the Seahawks are such the obvious play here that this can't be right. And I watched this line all week, and man, it opened at 6 and has not budged. And what does that tell you? Well, it tells you that it's the pros versus Joes, that the $5, $50, $100 bets are on Seattle, and the 50,000, 100,000 bets are on Tennessee. I think this could be an ugly slug amount. I actually did these, did my final write-ups earlier today and then polished them right before we came on. But that may be too many points. I might agree with you. Maybe Tennessee's only good for 21, but then I see Seattle at 26 or so. So it's just too many points to be laying with a team with the Titans. And again, I think above any other opportunity, and because the Packers, who also got humiliated, as I mentioned in my little diatribe, yeah, okay, they may be undervalued, but they're laying 10.5 against Detroit. Whereas here, the team that got humiliated in Tennessee is getting points the next week. And that's why I think they're the better team to buy low when everybody's crapping all over them. Yes, Seattle is a tough place to play, but Tennessee has a real advantage in the sense that you can run the ball with them because their back is so good. And therefore I'm taking the points. Low scoring game. Again, if I had to do it over again, I may have gone a little lower. Maybe I'll agree with you that Tennessee's at 21 points, but then I'll put Seattle at 24. I don't think they run away with this game.
Yeah, I mean, you do mention the 13th man there, and I think if this were any other team, any other game, any other stadium, I would 100% be there for Tennessee. I've just seen teams go into Seattle and just get maimed. Because it's hard to play there, man.
Yeah.
And like if they have a scheme, I mean, Pete Carroll is always good at coming up with something. And it's like, if he figures out a way to stop that running back, man, I don't know. I don't know if Tannehill's got it in his arm, but we'll see.
All right. Well, on the screen right now are John and I's official picks. No fees, no nonsense, just good old-fashioned sports betting advice poured straight from the tap. This is Sugar Bookie. I'm Erik. He's John. Thank you for spending some time with us. We wish you the best of luck at the window, and we'll see you next time.